Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. Today is going to be an awesome review of a very, very good show, but that it is honestly very, very hard to review one of these shows. This is Royal Rumble 1990, one of my favorite years there ever was in professional wrestling. This year, I was 9 years old, sitting in front of the television watching wrestling. Honestly, I didn't watch this on my own television. When I was a kid, I honestly didn't watch this for a few months, but I found out that one of my friends that I liked playing with, he lived on the other side of this big park that I lived right in front of when I was a kid. I found out that he was a professional wrestling fan, and that his grandpa let him order the pay-per-views, and they used to record them, and they used to have them all recorded on tapes. So I remember I watched this show before WrestleMania happened, but I can't remember how long it actually took me to watch this. I was at the age basically where we didn't have the box yet. I didn't know about Scramble Vision, so basically I knew that there was a pay-per-view, but I didn't know anything about what happened. This was an awesome show as a kid. The big build-up for this was basically having all of these guys inside of the ring at one time fighting each other, and just anything can happen, anybody could win it, and you truly believe that as a kid. It's not like when you're like setting up to watch the Royal Rumble this year. They're going to have a lot of names in there, but when it really comes down to it, is anybody going to win not named Seth Rollins, Dolph Ziggler, or Roman Reigns? I think those are the three names that are possibly going to win the Royal Rumble. When it comes down to it, if somebody put a gun to your head, everyone in here is going to pick Roman Reigns as their guy to pick the Royal Rumble. You might not want him to win it, but honestly, when it comes down to it, if you really wanted to put money on that prediction, what does it come down to? As a 9-year-old kid watching the Royal Rumble 1990, anybody could have won this match, whether if it was Roddy Piper, Mr. Perfect, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hulk Hogan. There was lots of big names in this match, and that's what it was all about. There's a little bit of a side story that it comes down to. Basically, when they thought up of the Royal Rumble for 1990, when they drew up the plans for who was going to win this Royal Rumble, the immediate pick was Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect was going to win this. It was going to sort of plug him into his big rivalry that was going to be going down with Hulk Hogan with his Saturday night's main event matches. He wasn't going to be able to say that he was the champion, but he was going to be able to say that he was the Royal Rumble winner. He was a good number one contender for Hulk Hogan. And at the last minute, Hogan got in Vince's ear, and all of a sudden, Mr. Perfect didn't win the Royal Rumble. What could have, would have, should have been. Mr. Perfect had a great career. As you know, WWE put out his own DVD on him. He never was a World Heavyweight Champion, but he's one of the best Intercontinental Champions of all time. And he's a big part of the show. The Undercard, when you look at this, really isn't a whole lot of anything. You've got the Undercard built on Jim Duggan versus the Big Boss Man, Ronnie Garvin versus Greg the Hammer Valentine in an I Quit match, and then you got the Bushwhackers going up against the Rougeau brothers. None of those matches are really going to make you say, like, I have to have this Undercard. It's going to be really, really good. The show kicks off. You've got the announce team of Tony Schiavone and Jesse Ventura. Very, very weird. I know when you go back in time and you watch some old 1990, I think 1991, or maybe it's 89. I can't remember what 2 years Tony Schiavone was in WWF, but it's very weird having him on those shows. This show is based out of Orlando. Jesse Ventura is there. He's wearing Mickey Mouse ears and a Mickey Mouse sweatshirt that is very Jesse Ventura. It's a very shocking thing to see when he pulls it up. Basically, they're saying that Orlando is a sellout show that night, and that basically even Mickey and Goofy can't get into the show. They're going to have to wait outside to see basically what happens from there. Undercard on here, like I said a minute ago, nothing really that spectacular. You got the Bushwhackers and the Rougeaus. The Bushwhackers pull out a win in here in a pretty long, maybe even too long tag team match. From there, you get a Brutus Beefcake going up against the Genius. This match ended at a double disqualification at the end of this match. You had Mr. Perfect coming down, fighting the fight of the Genius, coming down and taking out Brutus Beefcake with a chair, and just knocking him out, just sort of, just adding heat onto Mr. Perfect for the main event. I don't think Beefcake and Hogan, well, I guess yeah, they were, because they fought in the tag match at SummerSlam, but they weren't really connected. When I was watching the show, they didn't really play it off like Hogan was going to have to fight Mr. Perfect to get sort of revenge for what was going down. Next match was a really, really long match. Ronnie Garvin versus Greg the Hammer Valentine. This was the submission match. I don't think anybody told these guys that it was a submission match, because many, many times Valentine and Garvin tried to pin each other. They tried to build it up to the fact of that Garvin was wearing his own shin pad. He called it the Hammer Jammer. Basically, when Greg the Hammer Valentine would lock the figure 4 leg lock on Ronnie Garvin wouldn't feel the effects. At one time, he just sort of sits up and does like the Mickey Mouse antlers at Valentine, just saying it doesn't hurt. The Greg the Hammer Valentine finally gets the Hammer Jammer off of him, finally beats him down, puts him in the figure 4 leg lock, and Ronnie Garvin is able to roll it over and apply the power onto Greg the Hammer Valentine, basically making it like a sharpshooter move, and Greg the Hammer Valentine taps out and Garvin gets the win. From there, we went to Jim Duggan versus the Big Boss Man, a long singles match of just Boss Man beating up Duggan for about 10 minutes before finally going to the outside, grabbing his nightstick, hitting Jim Duggan with it, causing the disqualification for Duggan to get the win. When Duggan got the win, he was able to pick up the nightstick. He hits Boss Man with it, grabs his own 2x4. He knocks out Boss Man. Everybody goes home happy, and we go on to the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is very, very special to me, mainly because I guess it's all about Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania. But when you watch this show, and when the guys start coming out every 2 minutes, so many big names are in this. I'm looking at the top 10 names of guys that come out, and then there's 7 Hall of Famers. It starts out with Ted DiBiase and Koko Beware as the number 1 and number 2 guys. They play off the fact that last year at the Royal Rumble, Ted DiBiase was number 30, and this year he had the unlucky draw of number 1. But he said that he was not going to look into that as being something bad. He was going to go into this and he was going to eliminate guys one by one until he was the final guy standing, because he thought that he really was the best wrestler in the WWF, and that is exactly what he does. Before the next contestant comes down to the Royal Rumble, he's able to eliminate Koko Beware. He fights Marty Jannetty, who came down as number 3, and he's able to eliminate Marty Jannetty, waiting on Jake the Snake Roberts to come in as number 4. In your top 10 guys, like I said, you had a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. You had DiBiase, you had Koko Beware, you had Jake Roberts, you had Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, and you had Bret Hart. So you have an awesome way to start off this show. Randy Savage and Dusty Rhodes had an angle that was going on during this time. Basically, Savage hits the ring and he's able to fight with a whole bunch of guys. But when Dusty gets to the ring, basically Dusty goes right after Savage. And even though they have this sort of like big blood feud going on, it's kind of weird to me, because you would think that Dusty wants to get his hands on Savage and actually start beating him up. But Dusty Rhodes just grabs Randy Savage, sort of throws him over his back, and he's eliminated from the Royal Rumble. I guess he's not able to win the match, so that sort of hurts him in the long run. From having all those guys in there, the first highlight of the night was having DiBiase and, just eliminate guys one by one. You can tell that it really picks up when Andre the Giant hits the ring. Andre just starts throwing dudes around. And he's able to pick up 2 eliminations before you have one of your first complete tag teams come into there. It was Axe and Smash of Demolition. They start coming around. They start hitting guys left and right. Next thing you know, double clothesline on Andre, and Andre's hit up over the top rope. Eliminating Andre the Giant is a huge deal, even if it took 2 guys to do it, because Andre being the biggest guy, probably one of the biggest legends, your first WWF Hall of Famer. If he would have been in there, he would have been very, very hard to eliminate, even when guys like Akeem and Earthquake, who was sort of like in his rookie year for the WWF at that time. It would really been really hard for those guys to get down to. A pretty cool moment for Axe and Smash. As a big Demolition fan, they're one of my favorite tag teams of all time. To be able to do that is pretty cool. The ring starts to fill up again before finally the Ultimate Warrior comes down to the ring. He got number 21. One of the hottest moments is basically when Ultimate Warrior gets in there. He's able to go right after Dino Bravo, and he's able to eliminate him. He also eliminates Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And then there comes an awesome spot, basically, when finally Hulk Hogan comes down to the Rumble. He's in number 25 at this point. It's Ultimate Warrior. You've got Rick Martel and the Honky Tonk Man all fighting in there. Basically, Hogan goes after the Honky Tonk Man. Then you have the Warrior eliminates Rick Martel, and then you have this moment of, just pure electricity running through the ring. I mean, even watching this 20 years later, you feel it like, man, this is going to be an awesome match. This is going to be something really big in the future that they're building towards. Hogan and Warrior have a stare down. Basically, Shawn Michaels comes running down to the ring for his number, and as he hits the ring, he's eliminated so fast by the Ultimate Warrior. Just for Hogan and Warrior just to have this moment of basically they touch for a minute where they lock up, and then they're running the ropes crisscross applesauce with each other before they finally smack into each other. Both guys sort of give to the other one, but you don't really get to see the fisticuffs brawl that WrestleMania would be. But you could feel that somebody touched that, and they were like, "This is gonna be it." Finally, the Ultimate Warrior is eliminated by the Barbarian, Rick Rude, and out of anybody, Hulk Hogan gets involved to make sure that he gets him out of there. It comes down to Hogan and Mr. Perfect at the end. Once Perfect comes down at number 30, the match is pretty much already all said and done. As soon as Ultimate Warrior is eliminated, you can look and see the guys that are in there. You know that Hogan's going to be the guy. Hogan finally dumps Perfect over the top. He becomes the winner. He goes out to the outside in a real awesome moment. There's a fan in the front row who brought a Hulkamania banner that looks like it's pretty much done on a twin-size bed sheet, and Hogan's holding it up in the ring, and he's just sort of chanting along, and he's doing the pose down where it doesn't matter how long that pose down is. He can stand up there for 5 minutes or an hour and a half, and the fans are still going to be giving him these pops that you've never heard before. Hogan posed down to experience that one time back in the day. You knew how big of a star this guy really was. It sucks that the undercard for this show wasn't that great, but it wasn't really that hard to get through. The Bushwhackers, Rougeau brother tag match that was about 15 minutes long, honestly probably was the hardest thing to sit through. If you're able to sit through that, you're going to be able to sit through a great show. As these guys come running down and having the Royal Rumble entrances, you can just get to relive so many guys, and a lot of guys that we've lost over the years that aren't with us anymore. But tons of Hall of Famers, tons of should-be Hall of Famers, some of the biggest names in wrestling, because at this point, this is when Vince McMahon is just going out to those territories and just basically bringing everybody in. I mean, if you can think of guys in 1990 who were on top of the game that aren't on the show, it's a very short number of guys. You can think of like Sergeant Slaughter, Ric Flair, 1990 Sting is coming up. Where would Sting be in 1990? I guess he is in that main event scene from WCW. But I mean, those are probably much the three biggest names. Maybe you can throw Vader in there as well, Ron Simmons. But there's not many guys that are not on this roster, and having the biggest names in here is really awesome. I mean, when you really look at this list, probably the biggest jobber name out of anybody is... I can't think of anybody. I mean, reliving this time period, everybody was a big name in WWF. I mean, when you were a WWF superstar, it really meant something. And you can tell by watching the show. I can't think of who the biggest jobber name is in here. It might, as a joke, be Marty Jannetty, but the Rockers in 1990 were a damn good team. I don't think there is anybody. This is probably one of the strongest Rumbles you'll ever see. If you get a few years down the road into like 92, 93, maybe even I think 95 is the year that it was in Texas, the big Shawn Michaels Rumble when he went up against Sid. There's a lot of guys in there. You're just like, what the heck is going on? But this is the strong one right here. Check this out. Royal Rumble 1990. You can watch it on the WWE Network like I did, and you're going to have a ton of fun. Peace out, everybody.